Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another Short War video, and today we're receiving breaking news coming from the RDK, the Freedom of Russia Legion, that ex-Wagner fighters are beginning to join the ranks of these soldiers to launch that invasion onto Russian territory, specifically in the Belgorod region. And we're also learning that the attacks in the Belgorod region are increasing rapidly and shelling is going on right there in the city. And we're also learning here that the Russians are panicking bigger than ever because of the recent attacks. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into our first piece of the news for the day, which goes to the Euromaidan Press. And in this post, we can see ex-Wagner Group fighters are among the Russian volunteer forces battling for Ukraine on Russian soil, revealed Denis Kapustin, who is the leader of the Russian Volunteer Corps, also known as the RDK. And last week, these units launched a bold offensive from Ukraine into Russia's Belgorod and Kursk oblasts. So in this video right here, we can see Denis speaking about the Wagner Group soldiers joining their ranks and also actively fighting as we speak in the invasion of Russia. So let's go ahead and take a listen and see what he has to say.
Бойцы частной военной компании «Вагнер» принимали участие в рядах РДК уже на Авдеевском направлении, на Лиманском направлении. И, безусловно, они принимали участие и в этой ограниченной военной операции, которую мы проводили на территории Российской Федерации и продолжаем проводить. Бойцы эти сделали правильный выбор.
So in that video right there, you can hear Denis speaking about the Wagner soldiers joining their ranks, which is obviously a big deal because Wagner just got done a little while ago, a few months back, fighting for the Russians until their leader was killed in an unfortunate jet accident where it crashed, and then they were basically disbanded and they were soldiers without a cause. So it looks like some of them, the Wagner soldiers, might have joined the Russian military, and some of them left the Wagner group and then they joined the RDK. So quite a big development indeed, and those Wagner soldiers are finding their place fighting against Russia itself. So that's very good to hear. But with that, we're moving into our next article here, which goes to Flash News Ukraine. And in this post, we learned that the RVC fighters in the Belgorod region have captured 37 Russian soldiers, said the Corps Commander Denis once again, and according to him, some of the prisoners want to join the ranks of the RVC, and they are currently being checked. And if this option is not realized, then all of them will be transferred to the exchange fund of the Ukrainian side. And this is also a big development because it turns out the captured Russian soldiers no longer want to fight for Russia either, and they don't even want to just be simple prisoners of war. They want to actually fight on the side of the Freedom of Russia Legion. So if that is indeed true, that's also a big indication that the people in the Russian Federation and also the Russian military do not want to fight for Putin any longer, and they're willing to join the quote-unquote enemy's side. So it's certainly big news on that front as well. But with that, let's go ahead and move right into our next post here, which goes to Status6 on Twitter as well. And we can see the shelling, which is ramping up tremendously in Belgorod. And in this video, we can see the moment the shelling hit a courtyard on Gubkina Street in the Russian city of Belgorod on Thursday. So let's take a look and see what we have here. And damn, I went right in the middle of that courtyard right there, and you can hear the dogs are absolutely berserk. So very big shelling indeed, and it landed right there in the middle of the city of Belgorod. So the Freedom of Russia Legion is not holding back whatsoever, and Belgorod is still under major siege, and we're still covering that even right now. So it's really incredible, the absolute scale of the fighting going on there, and the lack of ability by the Russians to hold it off. It's really incredible to see. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here. And in this one from Nexta, we can see the moment of shelling near the building of the Belgorod Arena Sports Complex right here on video. So let's take a look at the video and see what we have here. And I don't think there's any sound in this video, by the way, but you'll see the shell come in and boom, there it went right there, right outside the arena in Belgorod. So very close to the town square. You can see actually cars moving around in the background here. So it's a live roadway. And also this is a unpopulated area. There were no civilians walking through here when that shell hit. But the fact, there's actually a still shot, perfect right there. We can zoom right back in here. Quite a big deal indeed. And like I said, the Freedom of Russia Legion is absolutely hammering Belgorod, and it's still going on even right now. But with that, let's go ahead and move right into our next article here, which goes to Ukraine front line. And we're getting these statistics coming in from last night's major Russian missile attack on Ukraine, where every single oblast in Ukraine was under a red alert, and the civilians had to go to their shelters to avoid being hit by the Russian missiles. And we can see that Ukraine had a very successful night when it comes to intercepting all the missiles. 31 Russian missiles were all intercepted. 29 out of 29 of the cruise missiles were intercepted, and also 2 of 2 of the Iskander-M and Kinzhal missiles were intercepted as well. And when you see, it's noted here that the main direction of attack was Kyiv. So that was the big deal about this attack, as well as Kyiv itself was directly targeted, but air defense came through and the entire city was protected. But unfortunately, there was some damage from falling missiles and warheads as well, the shrapnel, that ended up causing some damage. But that's a lot less than it could have been. And as we know right now, there were simply injuries and no known casualties as of the moment. So with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which goes to the Ukraine front line once again. And we can see that a warhead with 1,100 pounds of explosive inside from a downed Russian missile is being removed in Kyiv's main little district there, which I cannot pronounce. And it's safer to shoot down missiles rather than let them hit targets. And that is certainly true indeed, and that is a big success on Ukraine's part. And let's take a quick look at this video right here. It's 10 seconds long of the missile being recovered as we speak. And you see here is the missile itself being craned up by, it looks like the Ukrainian fire department, and they are getting that thing out of there. And like I said in that post, much better the thing was shot down and had to be recovered like this than it actually hitting its target. But with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which goes to Max23 on Twitter. And we can see that during a night missile attack, which was last night, a mobile fire group of the ground forces destroyed an enemy cruise missile with fire from a Browning M2 machine gun. That's not air defense, that's a machine gun, and Ukraine took down one of those cruise missiles simply firing at it like they are right here in this video. So let's take a look at this thing and see what we have here. And they hit it right there. That was an absolutely lucky shot, or either Ukraine has like got an aimbot or something going on here. That is insane. And that cruise missile was completely destroyed. And once again, that was part of the cruise missile barrage that was shot down by Ukraine last night. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into our next article here, which goes to the Kyiv Post. And we can see here that the HRU, which is the Ukrainian intelligence service, is confirming that the target of the attack, the target of the attack on Kyiv was indeed their offices, the HRU offices, and that was one of the main targets of it. Once again, the Russians are trying to take down the Ukrainian intelligence service and actually assassinate their members as well. And we can see here that they were trying to do it last night. But that's pretty much all to cover with that one. So we're moving on to our next post here, which goes to Anton Gerashenko. And we can see here that Russia says it will kill every French soldier who sets foot on Ukrainian soil. Every single one of them, says Pyotr Tolstoy, the deputy head of the State Duma, in an interview with, it looks like, a Russian media outlet. And it says, Tolstoy also expressed the opinion that Ukraine will never exist within the borders that were before the war. And according to him, this is an existential question for Russia. And we're actually not going to bother watching this clown Tolstoy from the State Duma in Russia actually speak. Once again, they are threatening the West, and it's hard to tell if they're actually making empty threats or are they actually intending on carrying this out. But the only way and the only time we'll ever find out is if the French actually send soldiers to Ukraine and they end up getting targeted by Russia. That's when we'll find that out, and by then it might be a little bit too late. So that could be a very big escalation indeed, and we'll have to wait and see if Russia actually carries through with that threat. But with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which is going to go to Visegrad 24. And in this post, we can see the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has announced the creation of 2 new ground armies with 16 new brigades and 14 new divisions. And it says here that post-election mobilization is coming, in the opinion of Visegrad 24. And I would say that that is now likely. Now that Putin has been quote-unquote re-elected in that totally quote-unquote fair and free election that Russia loves to have, I'm sure that post-election mobilization is on the way. Of course, Putin had to wait until his election was over to make it appear like there's no really reason to vote against Putin. But then, of course, we all know the elections in Russia are very, very rigged. So we can see here that they're probably going to start mobilizing people in Russia once again to actually fill these new ground armies and these new brigades. And I've heard they're going to call them the Meat Grinder Brigade, but that's just a rumor. But with that, we're going to jump into our last article of the day, which goes to Nexta. And we're going to switch gears just a little bit, but we have a very big piece of news coming out from the Asia region of the world, and we can see that the U.S. believes China will invade Taiwan in 2027. And that sounds like a pretty definitive statement. We have not heard a statement quite that specific before. And we see that China is building up its military and nuclear arsenal on a scale not seen since World War II. And all these signs point to the fact that the country is preparing to invade Taiwan by 2027, Bloomberg reported, citing senior U.S. military officials. So that's very big news indeed, and very concerning news. And it also sort of brings me back to the point that we made last night on our War News stream, that Russia is still building up a major coalition of anti-Western nations, and Putin seems to be spearheading that effort. And it seems like they're breaking off the anti-Western nations into one hemisphere of the world and the Western nations off into the other. And we have those two sides sort of conflicting here, and that's typically when situations for World War tends to brew up. And it looks like Putin is trying to actively make that happen by invading the sovereign country of Ukraine and also turning all of our enemies into even more bitter enemies, where it seems like they want to attack more of our allies like Taiwan and cause a major escalation to occur. So let me know down in the comments below, do you believe that China is really going to invade Taiwan in 2027, or perhaps even earlier than that? And also, do you think it will lead to a World War type situation if they were to do that, or will it remain sort of isolated and localized in the Asia region? But with that, that is actually our last piece of news for the day, and I hope you found this video informative. And if you have, please subscribe to the channel for more regular war updates, and also put a like on the video as well, because it helps us get the news out there faster. And also, if you want to support our operation financially, you can go and sign up on our Patreon page. The link is in the description below, and you can support us financially over there, and we greatly appreciate it. And we do post updates on Patreon quite a bit now, and that's a new project we've been working on here recently. But with that, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly War News stream, and bye-bye for now.